back for threading part 3. Today we're going to talk about thread pools. And remember, if you remember back to the lesson on background workers, I mentioned that background workers are useful when you have one or two other threads that you want to run besides your main thread. And a thread pool will be used in situations where you have maybe 5, 10, 20 threads extra that you want to run. And remember that these threads that you create, it's up to the operating system to determine which core they're run upon, but they will be spread across the cores if you have a multi-core processor. Okay, so thread pool is the subject for today. The way that you create a thread pool is rather simple. You basically just say thread pool, and there is a method called queueUserWorkItem, which has a couple of overloads, but the one that we're going to look at today is going to take a delegate, and then it's going to take some sort of object that we're going to pass in here. Okay, and we'll fill this in a second. So basically it's looking for, okay, what method do I run? And you can provide anything that, remember that you use delegates to kind of decouple it, so that's the reason why they use this new wait callback. Basically, it's looking for a delegate that has a signature of just an object of a target to pass into it. So basically you can pass any method into that. Let's go ahead and create one that's going to do our work. This is basically, can be thought of as a method that's going to do some sort of work in the background. We're going to actually have it pass in an object, and if we remembered our signature, we actually have to, the signature is of such that we pass an object into it. The signature right here. Let's go ahead and create an object to pass in. Let's just call it thread params, and we'll make one of them be the name of it, and we'll make one of them be the time. So basically, we're going to be creating objects and passing them into this deal right here. And I actually also want to create a list to keep track of all of these objects, just so that we can use this list to kind of refer to it later with another button click. Oops. Let's fix up our code real quick. This one out here. Okay, so we're going to pass in this do work method. And we're also going to pass into this thing a new thread params object. So we're going to create a thread params object here. We're going to give it let's give it a time. And in fact, we're going to actually stick this inside of a for loop, because we don't want all these to actually occur at once. We want to kind of stagger them out, just because that's just for this example here. In reality, you could just create them whenever you need them, but this is just going to show that there's potentially some time that lapses. And we're going to just put this inside of a simple for block here. The time is going to be equal to whatever I is, the current I. And let's go ahead and add this to we'll add this TP to our current list that we're keeping track of. Okay. So object, as it comes in, is going to be this TP, a reference to that TP object right there. So what we're going to do over here is we're going to have it sleep a certain amount of time, and we actually can't pull the values out of this object until we actually cast it. If you remember, we have to cast this object to something that's useful. Well, we know it's going to be a thread params object, so let's go ahead and cast it to that. ahead and sleep for a certain amount of time. Now let's go ahead and adjust the name here. We'll call it thread. And we'll give it the. We'll just give it some sort of name so we can refer to it later. We can see that this did some work on that object. Okay, so every time we're queuing a worker inside this for loop, we're telling it to do this right here, and we're passing it a new TP object. Remember, every time this loop goes through, we create a new TP object. We give it some sort of time, which is equal to I. We need to actually multiply this by 1,000 because that's in milliseconds, as you remember. Let's do 2,000. So every 2 seconds, one of these is gonna complete. But you remember that we actually put them all into queue at the very beginning. So the first one completes in 2 seconds, and then 4, 6, 8. So every couple seconds, we'll have one that actually completes its process. And then what we want to do is we want to wire up. Open this form up so that we can get to it. Okay, so we're going to have something that displays the results of our list, because our list, remember that we're filling this list in with values as we're doing work. So we're very easily we're going to be putting values into it. We're going to be putting in actually what we want to do is we want to iterate through each one of these thread params. Basically, we want to list out the contents of those thread params. We'll clear the text before each time so that we can get a brand new list. And we're going to go ahead and set the label equal to label. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because it won't let me put the new line in unless I explicitly show it out like this. I'm going to put the name in, and we're going to throw a new line here. Okay, so all this button 2 does is loop through each of the thread params in our list and prints out the name. And we'll notice that the name won't exist until it finishes this sleep. But all of these start immediately. All of the threads will start because it just loops through really quickly. It puts them into the queue. And as long as there's workers available, then it actually goes ahead and runs. Let's go ahead and put one more thing in here. There's something referred to as a max worker. Let's put it up. Let's just stick it right here. And I just want this to execute. So it should be some sort of get max threads. Okay. Let's just set label to text equals to maximum threads, just so we can kind of get an idea of what's going on there. Oh, it actually wants us to put it into an integer. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So we're not going to worry about that. We don't want to make this too complex. We're not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to focus on these completing. Go ahead and fire it up here real quick. And as you notice, we're going to start the process. And right now there's only one thread completed. Oh, now there's a few more came through and completed. So basically we're looking at the results as they come through. So we've got 3 of them done. Oh, now we got a few more finished, and as they come in, we can check back on it and see how many have finished. And eventually, every one of the threads will be done. Oh, and there we go. There's all 10 of them right there. So that is how you you use a thread pool. Fairly simple. It can get more complex, but the main thing that you need to remember is that it's the static method that you call queueUserWorkItem. You pass into it this delegate that basically takes an object. I think there's one that also doesn't. If you leave this parameter out, you don't have to use a method that require, the signature doesn't have to have any parameters inputs. You'll have a method that does some sort of background work, and then you can check up on your threads. Now there's other ways to check up on the threads, but basically this is the gist of getting work done in the background. Hopefully you'll be able to use it in your projects.